Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a review of another fabulous, fun-filled box set. Well, we'll see how fabulous it is, won't we? It is Mariss Jansons, The Oslo Years. That's like the Oslo Accords, right? You know, it was a diplomatic endeavor. Anyway, this is a box from EMI Warner of all of the recordings that Jansons did while he was running the Oslo Philharmonic. Well, not all of them, all the ones he did for this label. And it also contains 5 DVDs with some really good stuff on them, I have to say. The repertoire is fascinating and interesting and fun, but here's the catch. There's always a catch. How did Jansons wind up here? You may recall, way back in the dawn of time, that Jansons and the Oslo Philharmonic started out making some sort of basic recordings for local labels like CMAX. They did a lot of Norwegian music. They did a pretty good Brahms cycle. There were some like Mahler recordings and things, broadcast recordings, stuff like that. And they started to get a bit of a reputation. Then Chandos showed up, and they did the Tchaikovsky Symphony cycle. Now that caused a huge stir, even though the Fifth Symphony, which is what they did first, was the best of it, and the rest of it wasn't quite as good. It was still very good. It really was. And it brought to the general approbation of the wider musical universe, the Oslo Philharmonic and Mariss Jansons. He then made a bunch of recordings for Chandos that were really kind of uninteresting. There was a Mahler 2. Ugh. There was a Rachmaninoff 2. Ugh. You know, not wonderful. Really not wonderful. But as usually happens, he got some acclaim working for this very good independent label and immediately jumped ship to a major label. So the major label signed them, right? And that's how they wound up here. And from then on, he basically was an EMI artist and did recordings for EMI with all of the orchestras with which he was working at the time. But he started out, of course, in Oslo. And this object is one of those relics of the 1980s. Is that when most of these were made? I think so. You know, I can look at the actual dates, but 80s, 90s, when the classical music industry, let me look at the dates, because this really is a sort of fascinating historical import here. Let's see here. Usually they tell you some of these things were made. Or maybe not. Maybe they don't care. Let's see. Recordings made from, oh, good heavens. This is endless and impossible. All right. So they don't care. Well, there's the Hungry But Happy Years. They do have a little booklet here that tells you about when all of this stuff happened. 1987. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, basically the 80s. And that was when the classical music industry was going completely nuts, recording everything with everybody as much as they possibly could. And one of the curiosities of that period was the fact that they were recording really blockbuster repertoire with second-tier orchestras, all on the basis of the fact that they could somehow create a cult of personality around the conductor who was running the thing, as if the orchestra really didn't matter so much. It was all about the guy on the podium, right? Now, don't get me wrong. The Oslo Philharmonic is a splendid orchestra, but they're not the Berlin Philharmonic, they're not the Vienna Philharmonic, they're not the Chicago Symphony, they're not Philadelphia, they're not Cleveland, they're not, the Concertgebouw, they're not, they aren't, one of the world's top tier orchestras. That doesn't mean they couldn't play this music, or that Jansons wasn't a dynamic force who could galvanize them into doing absolutely top-notch work. Quite often he did. But the fact remains that what we have here, and what you'll see, is a box of really mostly sort of blockbuster, romantic, big orchestral dynamo favorites. And the problem with these performances, and the problem with Jansons generally, is that Jansons was a conductor of a very modern type. That is, he was very disciplined. He had very good technical skills. He got the orchestras to play very well. His performances were always neat and well-turned and disciplined and rhythmic. but always there was something a little lacking. He never really let go. And this is music that often requires you to let go. It matters more in some pieces than in others. And let's look at the box. We'll do our usual thing here. We're going to take it out and we'll see. And actually, the very first thing on the very first disc is a perfect illustration of what I'm talking about. Tchaikovsky, 1812 Overture, Francesca, Romeo and Juliet. These are exciting performances. They are, he whips up the orchestra to a fine fury most of the time. But for example, at the end of Francesca, most people, they take the coda, it's kind of dullish, and he doesn't. It's really exciting. It's really exciting until you get to the very last moment where Tchaikovsky just asks you to have a little bit of romantic excess. You've got the cymbals and the tam-tam, and it's like whack, 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 like this, It comes for nothing in this performance. He's built it up all the way to that moment, and then he doesn't deliver. And that is something that you will find time and time again in these performances where the opportunity exists for it. So let's look at the others. So you get this Tchaikovsky disc. I thought Romeo and Juliet's really good. The 1812 Overture, well, it's the 1812 Overture. Is it fabulous? Is it Dorati on Mercury Living Presence? No, it isn't. But it's good. It's good. I'm going to wind up saying, okay, it's good. The box itself, one of the things about Jansons is that he always maintained a very high average level of quality. It was very good, but it was never below and never above. It was all just very good. Level. On the level. And that sort of flatness is an issue. The sonics also from Oslo were a little bit lacking in brilliance. They're a little bit cut off at the top. They're kind of like the performances. Good, sometimes very good, but they seldom reach out and grab you, and give you a shake. So let's continue. Shostakovich 5. Jansons was a superb Shostakovich conductor. It's an excellent performance. I have no problem with it. Very, very good. Shostakovich was really one of his specialties. Svensson, Symphonies 1 and 2. This is a beautiful disc of two lovely symphonies. It's wonderful to have. This is the kind of stuff that he should have done more of. Some unusual repertoire, some Nordic repertoire, but of course, by this time, he was working for EMI, and they weren't going to let him do that. That wasn't big blockbuster stuff that everybody's known. But this is a beautiful, beautiful disc, and it's really a shame that he wasn't able to do more of the same. He did do some of that on C-Max. There's some very good Norwegian stuff there. But you would think, you listen to it, you go, aha! It's proprietary. There aren't a million recordings of it. They do it as well as anybody. Why not let them do it? Ask EMI or now Warner, whatever they are. Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet suites. Case in point, neat, beautifully played. He always did good Russian music. Jansons that was his field, right? In Russian romantics, good performance. But was it Moody in Philadelphia? No. Is it Chung in the Concertgebouw? No. Was it even Tilson Thomas in San Francisco? No. But it's good. What do you say about it? You can't really knock it, but on the other hand, there's just better stuff out there. And that is a story we are going to come back to again and again and again, such as this thing, Pictures in an Exhibition with A Night on Bald Mountain, or the Bear Mountain, or, the mountain without hair, whatever you call it, and Dawn on the Moskva River. Who cares? We don't need it. We just don't need it. Now, here we got to get good stuff. Get some good stuff. Jansons was a very good Dvorak conductor. He really was. He was a very good Brahms conductor, actually. He sort of had that combination of discipline and slight reserve. Works really well in Brahms. It works really well in Dvorak. And New World Symphony, it's beautifully done. There's no exposition repeat in the first movement. Who cares? I don't care. You may want to know. And the Moldau, well, usual thing with the trumpets, but it's also very good. Good performances. His Dvorak was good, and he didn't do enough of it. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, another sort of worthless collection of blockbuster thingies. Pines of Roman Festivals. Not a bad Roman festival. Say not a bad. Yes, not a bad. Daphnis and Chloe Suite number 2. Does anybody care? And The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Very well done. Very nicely done. It's another kind of work that he would do well. Rhythmically a little tricky, and it requires nothing more than to wind it up, let it go, and really keep it together. And they do. Very good. This is a good disc. The Bartók Concerto for Orchestra. It's a fine Bartók Concerto for Orchestra and a really good music for strings, percussion, and celesta. One that nobody remembers, ever. No one talks about it, but it's very, very well judged. It's really close to Bartók's timings. It's not too slow. It's really razor sharp. It's very, very well done. A work that has a lot of bad performances, and this is a good one. The Bartók disc is definitely worth having. This is one of the best Dvorak things he did, the Symphony No. 5, at a time when almost no one was doing this symphony. Still, people don't do this symphony outside of complete sets, and it's a wonderful, wonderful symphony. A great, great work, and this is a dynamite performance. An absolute dynamite performance. If you're a Classics Today insider, I'm going to have a clip of the finale on the Classics Today website that you can listen to. It's really, really hot. Excellent. With an excellent Otello overture and a Scherzo Capriccioso that, again, it's very, very good, but it could have a little more sparkle on the top. I just wish these recordings had a little more brilliance, a little more impact. Sibelius 1, Karelia Suite, and Finlandia, also very good. I mean, he should have been allowed to finish his Sibelius cycle because he never finished Dvorak, he never finished Sibelius. This would have been a real contender, I think, in the Sibelius sweepstakes because the performances he left us are very, very fine. And I just wish that he was able to do more. But of course, EMI had so many Sibelius cycles, not least of which was the miserable Simon Rattle cycle that they were plugging like crazy. And so what are you going to do? They did 1, 2, 3, and 5, which we'll get to. But they're good. They're really good. As good as any. Shostakovich 6 and 9. First rate. Absolutely first rate. Again, his Shostakovich is as good as anybody's, and they play marvelously, and that's fine. Okay. Oh, dear. Wagner Orchestral Excerpts. What do we get here? Meistersinger Prelude, Tristan and Isolde, Prelude and Liebestod, Tannhäuser Overture, Götterdämmerung, Siegfried Funeral March, The Ride of the Valkyries, Lohengrin, Prelude to Act 3, the Rienzi Overture. It's a Wagner disc. How many of those do we need? Who cares? It's a total, complete, unnecessary, needless experience. Dvorak 7 and 8, also very good. So you get 5, 7, 8, and 9. That's his Dvorak. But it's excellent, excellent Dvorak. It really is worth hearing, and it has held up very, very well over the years. This was good stuff. And the Dvorak Cello Concerto with Truls Mork. An excellent Dvorak Cello Concerto. It's a performance people are likely to forget, because who's paying attention to all the billions of Dvorak Cello Concertos that are out there, many of which are excellent, but this is very good. And it comes with, of course, with the Tchaikovsky Rococo Variations, which I have never liked. Do you like that? I mean, do you like that piece? Isn't it just boring? I mean, it's just so dull. Oh, God. I've never figured that out. Anyway, Sibelius, Symphony No. 2, also one of the better Sibelius 2s. A piece that people blow to bits all the time, but this is a very good one, along with the Swan of Tuonela, the Valse Triste, and the Andante Festivo. Very, very good. Enjoyable from beginning to end. Stravinsky. Okay, they had to do it. The Rite of Spring and Petrushka. Neat, clean, a little boring. I mean, just not as exciting as they should be. There are better versions out that are more brilliantly recorded, more exciting, sharper, more focused. It's never terrible, never great. Wonderful disc. Honegger, again, here's the kind of stuff they could have done if they'd done more of it. Not music that's played to death, and Jansons can bring his own particular brand of discipline and smoldering passion, with the emphasis on smoldering, I think there. But no, this is a very fine disc. You get Symphonies 2 and 3, the Liturgique, and the String Symphony in Pacific 231. Very well done. Absolutely well done. And it's not the kind of music that you're going to have sweaty, heaving, passionate, romantic excess in. It's music that needs to be played neatly and cleanly. It's in a neoclassical vein for the most part, even though there's a lot of violence in it with, the sort of rhythmic acuity that Jansons brings to the table. You're going to have very, very good performances. And you do. It's one of their better discs. Isn't it amazing how conductors usually make Honegger one of their better discs? I mean, Karajan did too, with the same repertoire. He didn't do Pacific 231, but he had the second and third symphonies. It's one of the best things he ever did with the Berlin Philharmonic. It was Honegger. Go figure. Okay, let's see. What do we have? Okay, Saint-Saëns, Symphony No. 3, and the Violin Concerto No. 3 with Frank Peter Zimmermann. The Violin Concerto is beautiful. I like Frank Peter Zimmermann. I think he's a wonderful violinist. The Symphony, good, not relevant. It's just not relevant. It's just not going to compete with the best ones that are out there. Sibelius 3 and 5. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. Beautifully paced, clean, focused, beautiful playing, and elegantly shaped. And the third symphony is one that, of course, it's the least popular, probably even less popular than the sixth, and they do a really good job with it. So, why couldn't we have had more Sibelius? Why? I ask you, why? Okay, then they took that Festa Romana and stuck it to the other two Roman tone poems. And here they are, and there they go. Let's see. World Encores. World Encores. The world is an encore. Let's encore the world. And it is. This is 79 minutes of little Googies by Bernstein, the Candy. I can't even do this. You've got stuff from Korea. You've got stuff you've never heard of. Leon Jun Kim, Bernstein, Hugo Alfin, Tchaikovsky, Dvorak, One Slavonic Dance, Sibelius, The Valse Triste, Elgar, Wild Bears from The Wand of Youth. Okay. Grieg, Morning, Bizet, Farandole, Bach, Air on the G string. The hell is that doing there? Kodai's Intermezzo from Harianos, Mascagni's Intermezzo from Cavalleria Rusticana, the Toccata from the Bachianas Brasileiras No. 2, the little train of the Caipira, whatever that thing's called, by Villalobos. Then something by Yuzu Toyama, The Dance of the Celestials. And Dinitsu, remember him, the Hora Staccato, which I don't know why anyone ever listens to. It's arranged by Jascha Heifetz and orchestrated by Adolf Schmidt. And if anyone else got their hands on it, and packaged by Procter & Gamble. So there you go. Let's see, what is this? Ruperto Ciappi e Laurenti, the prelude from La Revoltosa. Unter Donner und Blitz by Johann Strauss II. Oh, and you got Jakob Gada, Jalousie, Tango Zigana. Oh, I love that, don't you? Isn't that just great? That's the one, everyone knows it, but no one knows who wrote it. You just go, yum, ba-da, da-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da. Well, in case anyone's asking, it's by Jakob Gada, who is not the same thing as Niels Gada. That's totally different. This is a Danish light music composer. So there you go. The tango Jalousie. And then finally, Mikis Theodorakis, the finale from the Zorba Suite. I guess this is world encores. I've never seen so many encores in the whole world. I mean, believe you me. So that's the stuff. And then we get the DVDs. Now, the DVDs have got some cool stuff here. You've got Tchaikovsky, Manfred, and the Capriccio Italienne. The only thing is that Yanchez was not any more exciting live than he was in the studio. He was basically the same. Maybe the way it's all, we know what his Manfred is like. It's a very disciplined, neat, exciting, fast performance that's a little bit of a letdown at the climaxes. That's Jansons, That's his thing. Okay, Strauss and Franck, also sprach Zarathustra, with the Franck Symphony in D minor. Very good Franck Symphony. The Strauss is actually kind of unkillable. If you can play it, it's going to come out well, as long as it's not too slow, and this is not too slow. Then let's see. Oh, Mahler. Very good Mahler 1. Good Mahler 1. Exciting Mahler 1. And he doesn't wimp out at the big moments. He really doesn't. He keeps the tempo going, but he doesn't pull back, which is rewarding. And a very good Firebird suite, too, by Stravinsky. Then let's see. Sibelius again. Symphonies 1 and 2, which are basic. Oh, and there's an introduction in Norwegian. Worth it for that alone. Really. And then Beethoven, Eroica, and Symphony Number 7. No one needs those. I mean, are they good? You know, I listened to them once. They're not going back. I mean, again, decent, nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be excited about. So that, let me put all these suckers back in their box, is Mariss Jansons, the Oslo years. And if I sound tepid about some of it, or a lot of it, that's because there's a lot to be tepid about. And there's also some really, really exceptional stuff. And I just can't help but think that, you know, for all the effort and talent that goes into these things, you would think that the artists, even if the labels don't know what they're doing, which they never did, that the artists would at least know what their strengths are and do their best to play to them. I mean, the Oslo Philharmonic was never going to make a disc of Respighi tone poems that the world was going to sit back and go, our ship has come in. You know, it's crazy. It's just crazy. But with Svensson and Sibelius and Shostakovich and Dvorak, I mean, they have a good central core from which to work. And I can only think, you know, basically that EMI and Warner never really let them do that. And maybe they didn't have the leverage to fight back or the imagination and creativity to come up with a better recording program. I wish they had, because, you know, the best of this stuff shows really that they could have been quite splendid in a lot of other music. And they should have been allowed to do that music. This is the record industry in the 1980s. Just recording everything with everybody willy-nilly and without much concern for whether there was competition or whether what they were doing was as good as the competition. They just did it because it existed and they could. And that's what we have here. Now, should you get this box? Well, that's a tough one to answer, isn't it? I mean, some of you, I'm sure, will have some of these, the best of these things, you know, earlier, and their individual incarnations. I mean, on the whole, for Svensson, Dvorak, Sibelius, Bartók, you know, there's some really good stuff here. Probably more good stuff and no bad stuff. There isn't anything they did that falls below a certain level. But there are better performances of just about all of this stuff. And so it ultimately, and it pains me to say it, pains me, I find this to be enjoyable but not necessary. Let's just call it a luxury. If you really want to have more versions of this stuff, get this, it won't make you unhappy. But if you're comfortable with what you have in the repertoire that I've just mentioned, you don't need this. That's the reality. That's the reality. Keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me. Take care.